Today's gospel is one of the most well-known and perhaps very, very beloved gospel passages in all of the gospels. Part of that is because of who Jesus reveals himself to be. He reveals himself to be this well of the living water, a well of God's life, of God's love, of God's mercy, and him, or that love, mercy, and life being unending, and that it is living in him. But it is also, and perhaps more beloved, because of who he offers this living water to. He offers this living water not just to another Jew, not just to one of his own, not just to any person. He offers this living water to a Samaritan woman. And we know that Samaritans were despised and hated by the Jews. This woman was despised and hated by the Jews. She had, for all intents and purposes, been expelled from the temple. She had abandoned God's covenant, and she was beyond hope. This was the view of Samaritans. There's no hope of salvation. They have been cut off from the covenants of old. And here is God himself offering living water to a woman who has been cut off since the day of her birth because she is a Samaritan. And what does she say? She says, "Sir, give me this water. Give me this water so that I may not thirst anymore." Pointing to the fact that she had been thirsting to be back in relationship with God, to be a part of his covenant relationship, to be included in the temple. She did not want to thirst anymore. "Sir, give me this water." Demanding it of Christ. And what if Christ, what if our Lord had said no? What if Jesus had told the woman at the well, "No, this water is not for you. Go back from where you came"? This past week, I read an article in the Indy Star, and I don't make it a habit of reading the Indianapolis Star. But actually, they've written one very good article last weekend on our own Connorsville boys basketball team, a very well done article. But this week, I encountered an article that was more disturbing in nature. It was an article recounting an event that had happened, I believe, last weekend at Plainfield High School. It was a robotics competition. And there was a fourth grade team that had entered this competition from a school called Pleasant Run Elementary. And this fourth grade team won first place in their level in the robotics competition. And now, normally when children win first place, you expect that they would get some sort of accolade, a trophy, an attaboy, way to go. But this team, I'm sure they got a trophy, but they didn't get any other accolades. They didn't get what you would normally expect to get in having achieved some level of excellence and being recognized for that. They didn't get any recognition really at all that we would welcome. This fourth grade team consisted of 5 children from Pleasant Run Elementary, 2 of whom were African American and 3 of whom were Latino. And instead of getting accolades, as soon as it was announced that this team had won the contest, according to people that were there, the parents of this fourth grade team began to hear other parents from opposing teams begin to say, the only reason they won is because they're from Mexico. They are ruining our country. This is what parents of these children heard. And it wasn't over. As the fourth grade children and their families walked to their cars leaving Plainfield High School, There were children from opposing teams shouting across the parking lot. Children shouting across the parking lot to these kids, "Go back to Mexico." Children shouting, "Go back to Mexico." What if our Lord had told the Samaritan woman at the well, "No, this living water is not for you"? If he had told her no, this is what you would have heard today when you walked into church, and what I would have heard when I walked into church. Go back from where you came. We would have heard the very same thing that those fourth graders heard in the parking lot at Plainfield High School. You would have heard the exact same thing. We would have heard, "Go back. What is here is not for any of us. Leave and do not return." But as we know, our Lord did not say no to the Samaritan woman at the well. He offered this woman living water because he desired even her. He desired this one who was so despised and so ridiculed by his own people. He sought her out and offered her, the one who had never been a part of any of this, living water. And in this we see a great foreshadowing, a great preview of things to come because of Jesus Christ. In particular, through his suffering, death, and resurrection. We see the foreshadowing in this encounter of the new covenant. We see the preview of the new covenant. And there is a difference, a big difference between all the old covenants in the Old Testament and the new covenant that God makes with all of us in Jesus Christ. There is one similarity, and Jesus affirms this in the gospel, that salvation is from the Jews. Just as in the Old Testament, God reveals his salvation to his chosen people, through the Jewish people, so he does by raising up his Son as a devout Jew. But the difference is that in the old covenants, that salvation was only offered to God's chosen people. It was only offered to those who were in covenantal relationship with God, the Jewish people. But in this new covenant, that offer of salvation extends not only just to the Jews, but to every single person, to all the nations. It is the universal offer of salvation that we see foreshadowed in this beloved story of our faith, the encounter with the woman at the well. And just as we cannot claim, guys, just as we cannot claim to be fully practicing our faith if we support and are okay with abortion, just as we cannot claim to be fully Christian if we support and are okay with same-sex marriage, just as we cannot claim to be fully living out and practicing our faith if we are okay with these kind of gender theories that have come on the scene where a person can actually choose to be other than their gender that they were born in. Just as we cannot claim to be Christian and support these things, we cannot seriously claim to be practicing our faith if we believe that the universal offer of salvation has nothing to do with the plight of documented and undocumented immigrants in our nation. The two have everything to do with one another. Jesus' offer to all the nations of living water, to all the nations of his life, his love, his mercy, that universal offering has everything to do with how we welcome and how we treat the strangers in our midst, the immigrants. And it seems that perhaps our nation, which we know has been founded on Christian values and Christian principles, it seems that perhaps our nation has forgotten a very central idea, a very important gift that Jesus Christ actually offers. Namely, the universal offer of salvation, the universal welcome, the universal offer of friendship between God and man. It seems that perhaps our nation has forgotten that. And I am not picking on President Trump. I am not, in truth, picking on President Trump. If we want to look at presidents, we can look at our previous president, of President Obama, and his record of deportation. There is no president, you can add up all the deportations done and performed by all presidents before Barack Obama, President Obama, and he deported more than all of the previous presidents added together. I'm not picking on any president because this is not a presidential problem. This is a human problem. Those were children shouting across the parking lot, "Go back to Mexico." That's not a presidential problem. That's a human problem. And because it's a human problem, that is our problem. Guys, if we have any hope of reforming our hearts in this Lenten season, of reforming the heart of our nation in this Lenten season, we have to start. We have to start with that universal offer of salvation. If we have any hope of reforming how we treat immigrants in our midst, our starting point as Christians is that God universally offered to all. Not just to you and not just to me, but to all. That living water. God offered to all his life, his love, and his mercy. That is our starting point.